Enquanto você escuta seu podcast favorito, que tal dar uma olhada nos looks da Riachuelo para as festas de fim de ano? Brilhos, transparências, vestidos, conjuntos, temos tudo para todos os eventos. Aqui, toda festa começa com look.
Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer,
engenheira,
pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday evening, moments after the Islanders beat the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa, is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, it was 2 wins, 2 losses for the Islanders this year. They are closer to a playoff berth in the standings, but that could be a little deceiving. We're going to get into a little bit later. But back-to-back wins are back-to-back wins, and that's exactly what they did this weekend. So where are you right now with the Islanders following their wins on Saturday over the Carolina Hurricanes and their win Sunday over the Ottawa Senators?
I am in a pretty familiar, frustrating place, which is they won the 2 games in a row, which were enough to put me back on the brink of being pulled back in. Right? Had they that was the bare minimum. They had to win these 2 games. And then there's a lot more work for them to do before I before I really do get carried away with a new phenomenon that you're gonna unveil later in the show, which I'm very excited to hear all about. So I'm not there yet. I'm not in like, oh, we're back mode. But I'm close, which is a lot better than I was after the performance against the Kraken on Thursday night, which had me thinking, obviously, and thank you to everyone who's reached out to say congrats about the baby. But I've been with Emmy, Lou, and Island. One of the overarching themes of this whole podcast is like the question of, will the Islanders ever win in our lifetime? And I got to say, after that Kraken game, and you're holding a 1-week-old,
right?
You're thinking, I don't even know if they're going to win in your lifetime. So that's where I was after that game. So to be pulled back from that sort of abyss is a step in the right direction. But the way they did it certainly was weird. But this team, as everybody inside or on the island knows, like, this has been another bizarre season after a bizarre season after a bizarre season.
Mm.
So, yeah, the way they've gotten to this point, which is NHL 500 through 29 games, has been frustrating, infuriating, funny, as well. And now there's 53 games to go for them to make it at least a little bit worth it. But where I stand right now, it's I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm happy that at least they're playing some meaningful games in the second week of December.
My God, 53 more games. 53 more games of this.
I think is that right? Right, that's the math, right?
Yeah,
82 minus 29 is 53.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes, 53 more of these.
Oh my God. I just immediately felt very tired right away after you just, I hadn't even thought about that. We're going to get to their games played number, the actual number again in a little bit, but oh my God, I don't know if I can make it through. They have like another basically 2/3 of the season to go for the most part. Like they passed the quarter mark a while back, and they are 11-11-7, which is the most normal record they've had in quite some time at this point. It's not like 9-7-10 or whatever it was wasn't it 6-7-9 at one point last year? It was really weird. But yeah, I don't know. These couple of games here, we're going to talk about the 2 wins and then we're going to talk about the 2 losses first and then the 2 wins. But there was a lot left on the table for me personally in all of these games. The losses obviously, but the wins too got me feeling very uneasy, and I have a very hard time kind of getting back on the train, like you said. And there was a shot at one point during the game against the Kraken of Lou Lamoriello in his suite, just sort of scowling at the product on the ice, and the scoreboard.
The award, right? Last year we gave away the award for the image of the season.
Yeah.
It's Simon Holmstrom helping Robert Bortuzzo on the ice. That picture of Lou Lamoriello is the front runner right now for image of the season.
Definitely. And so like the scorebug said, Seattle 4, Islanders nothing, and he was just sort of scowling. And I just posted this to Blue Sky. Even when they win, this is my face. Like this is the face I have. It's just me scowling. And actually I turned I closed the laptop. I was done. And my wife was like, "Oh, did they win?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they won." And she goes, "Oh, great." And I was like, "Yeah." Like, it's hard to even explain why I was like,
It is. It's almost like being down 3-0 in a series and you win like the 4th game.
Right.
And you're like, it was great,
but yeah.
There's a lot more work to do, and it hasn't been fun to this point, so.
No, has not. So we're going to get into all that. Reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. You can join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar, and you can also gift a subscription to the Islanders fan in your life if you think that they would enjoy the Islanders Anxiety vibe. So check out all of that at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Okay, like I said, let's look at the losses first, and we can kind of combine the 2 of them together, and then we'll get to the wins, and we'll combine those 2 together in a few minutes. So on Tuesday, the Islanders played the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. They lost 2-1. Patrick Laine was back, and if you had Patrick Laine scoring 1 goal in the pool, congratulations, you are the winner. I had him getting a hat trick, so I was a little bit, I guess overshooting his impact in the game, but he looked great. He got a huge ovation. He did, in fact, score the first goal of the game, which was in the second period. Of course, it was on the power play, which continues to be the Islanders' kryptonite this year. Anders Lee, who's been terrific again, he was great all weekend as well. Tied the game with whacking in his own rebound at 1-1. The third was 0-0 again, mostly defensive play between both teams. There was a double minor called on Maxim Sipakov, but then they called it back because they said the Montreal player, I think, hit himself in the face with the stick or something. They go to overtime. Bo Horvat and Simon Holmstrom have a 2-on-1, but Horvat ends up losing the puck. It goes right to Mike Matheson on the other end, who scores. And Sorokin, it goes right to Mike Matheson, who goes to the other end. Sorokin makes the save, but the rebound bounces off of Horvat's skate. Credit is given to Nick Suzuki, and the game ends 2-1 loss. Sorokin was very good. He made 25 saves, including a huge glove save on Cole Caulfield in the first period. Sam Montembeault does what he always does, turns into Ken Dryden when he plays the Islanders. Made 30 saves, and it was the usual Islanders Habs game. Very low scoring. Ends up the Islanders on the losing end, despite neither team really playing all that well. And then we alluded to it before, a 5-2 loss to Seattle on Thursday. For our national audience on ESPN Plus, watch the Islanders basically just piss themselves I mean, I could go through this, but it was 4-0 Seattle at one point. It was the boos were raining down. The effort was embarrassing. Shane Wright is like putting pucks through Scott Mayfield's legs to score on the power play to make it 4-0. It was completely awful. In the third period, they got a couple back. Sipakov gets a backhander. Casey Zizekas, I think, also had a goal in that period. But Noah Dobson lost a race for a puck with Jaden Schwartz. They ended up getting a 5-2 score there. Sorokin only made 9 saves because the Islanders didn't give up a whole lot of shots, but whatever they gave up, he kind of let in. He was sliding all over the place. It didn't look great. Joey Decord was terrific. He made 28 saves. Oh, Marcus Hogberg came in for the third, made 11 saves, looked great. But at that point, the game was effectively over. The Islanders were 0 for 3 on the power play and 0 for 2 on the penalty kill, of course, and were generally horrible. Okay, enough of that. These two games combined, I am like you. I was in the same headspace as you. This team is not going anywhere. The Seattle game in particular, I hope nobody watched this on ESPN Plus because I would have not, if I saw this game on the schedule for that night, I would not have watched this had I not been an Islanders fan. But unfortunately, I did. And if I did watch it as an outside fan, I would have been like, what is wrong with these guys? Why do they look like they're skating in week-old mashed potatoes? And the answer is they always look like that. This was terrible, worse than normal. But, take me back to that moment. They lose 5-2 to Seattle. This is after the 2-1 loss to Montreal, which, frankly, I had completely forgotten about before this morning. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, I never want to see this team again, and 1 being like, I don't know, maybe they can turn it around. Where were you at with this team following these 2 losses during the week?
The Canadiens game, that's just rinse and repeat stuff, right? Like you just.
Oh yeah, we've seen that game before for sure.
Yeah, we're so used to that. We're
Right.
so used to the feeling of, that you get to overtime and you're like, okay, we got a point, and then you have the weird sense of relief because you got the point, and you also know you're not going to get the second point because this team has 23 overtime losses in the last 2 seasons. Or shootout, 23 post-regulation. 23 times. It was 23 out of 102 games. So that's 1 out of every 4 games that they've played.
Oh, wow.
Or so, just a little, like whatever, it's 4 and a third games. They lose in overtime. So it's just a feeling that we know. Like that's that's where we are most comfortable. Losing in overtime to less skilled teams. I thought the game was fine. The Islanders played well. I don't want to keep repeating what we keep saying about how they lost the benefit of the doubt when it comes to moral victories. The second the season started, when they blew the game to Utah. So disappointing loss, but at the same time familiar. So just go to sleep, wake up the next day, and the Islanders are in where they're supposed to be in this day and age. That game against the Kraken, though, if you were an Islander fan that ended, first of all, for any fans that went to that game, I had a longtime listener, Gavin, one of our great English listeners, great cricket fan as well, and a big Leeds United fan. Gavin reached out and said that because he's a season ticket holder, goes to every game, and was talking about how when he first started going to Islander games that there was nobody, nobody's there. The team sucked. They got booed. So there's something warm and comfortable about being in the building that night because it felt kind of nostalgic. So, But so for any Islander fans that were at the game, you feel bad for them, especially if you had to make the long trek back to your car in that windy, cold, dreary night after an effort like that. But if you were an Islander fan who, after that game, still felt any shred of optimism, I give you a ton of credit. That was one of the most demoralizing. And what's worse about that, and we'll talk about it in the second half, was it wasn't just the game that was demoralizing, but then the Jacob Trouba Saga started to reach its conclusion, which of course goes completely the way of the Rangers. They get an incredible life raft from another team out west. So those, whatever it was, 12, 24 hours, because then the Rangers played that night and won. So those 24 hours, if that's not rock bottom, this season is not only doomed, but it's doomed to a place that none of us really know
Right.
how bad this can get, because we talk so often about this, how the Islanders seem to be searching for rock bottoms at every corner. Like, you'd think that games against the Red Wings, the first game was rock bottom. Okay, that's it.
Mm.
Like, that'll snap this team into focus. Or the game against the Panthers, or the game against the Capitals. But every Islander fan who's watched this era of the team knows that they can find a rock bottom while they're already in rock bottom. So, but having said that, if if that 24 hours after that Kraken game, which they know showed, wasn't rock bottom, we're in uncharted waters when it comes to just the super specific kind of darkness that the Islanders can bring you into. Because that was really tough. I was ready, not just in terms of like Islanders, like just ready to give up the hockey as a hobby itself. I was just done with it. I was ready to move on. There's been a lot of fun cricket going on in Australia the past couple of weeks, between India and Australia, and it's just the absolute box office stuff. A lot of drama, some great spirit of the game stuff going on. And I'm like, you know what? Just done with the Islanders. Just gonna devote myself 1000% to cricket when it comes to sports, because at least I'm not gonna watch Australia or India or Bangladesh do what the Islanders did in front of their fans on Thursday night, after what they put us through the season. So I was in a really rough spot, and then you look up and you take a deep breath and think, okay, the season still is unfortunately in its early stages, and maybe they do drag you out of it, but then you realize, oh, they're playing the Hurricanes.
Yeah. I know, just
Saturday night, right? So like that just adds to the darkness of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you have the no-show against the Kraken, the way the season's gone to this point, the injuries, the fact that there also doesn't seem to be any solutions to the problems, which I don't think maybe is true anymore after these 2 wins. I do think the Islanders are starting to figure out some things, but at that point, it didn't look like there was any light at the end of the tunnel, and not just in terms of the season, but beyond. Not a fun place to be at all as a fan of any team, and especially this one, which puts you through some seriously like cruel torture. Not just, oh man, they had a down season, they didn't make the playoffs, and hopefully we make a good draft pick at the number 7 spot. It's no, not only did they not have a good season, but they lost a couple players in hotels, and one player in Detroit. They don't know if they're gonna they don't know if the building will be there in the morning. There's a referendum in August. There's the goalie they signed to a 15-year deal doesn't have any knees anymore. Like the Islanders can put you through some serious shit. So it felt like all that's, after a loss like the one against the Kraken, it felt like all that baggage comes crashing down on you.
Yes.
And you run through it in your head, which is not healthy at all. Like, I shouldn't, just because the Islanders lost, I'm going to call it a 4-0 loss to the Kraken, because that's essentially what it was. Just because the Islanders lost 4-0 to the Seattle Kraken on home ice doesn't mean I should start thinking about Rick DiPietro's contract, right? Like that's not where your mind should go.
Like we're in a referendum and all
right.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be going there thinking about the Gang of Four,
right? Yeah,
like all this kind of stuff, and sumo wrestlers as goalies.
Yeah,
this is your brain shouldn't go there. Oh man, they replaced the goal horn with the subway air horn at Barclays Center. Like all this stuff comes rushing through your mind, and
pieces of the ceiling falling on.
That's just concrete in the toilet. Exactly. It's all sorts of stuff, and it was just a loss in a funky season. But because of the depths that this team is dragging us through, just to get to 500 after 29 games, that baggage smacks you in the face after a performance like that. And that was the worst part of the season for me by miles. And that's saying something, because we've seen some fucked up shit already this year, and you'd think that you would have said, I probably have said that like 3 times already, but I don't think I'm really concerned. I will be really concerned if anything comes close to the way I felt for about the Islanders for the 24 hours after that Kraken loss.
I mean, I felt a lot of that way during that loss. And I mean, it got right off the bat, 2:48 in, the Islanders were already down 1-0. Ty Cartier.
ESPN.
Yeah, on ESPN. For the only good thing is that we got Bob Wischusen and Ray Ferraro. I'll get back to Ferraro in a second. So it wasn't the Buchagras Weeks dynamic duo that or the duo of doom that we sometimes get, but at least the call was a good one. But yeah, Ty Cartier, who, by the way, this guy annoys me because he doesn't spell his name like the store Cartier. I always have to remind that. I hate that. He tips a shot 2:48 in already. Sorokin doesn't look good. The Islanders don't look good. They're slowly getting into it. Of course, Scott Mayfield, who I'm going to talk about again when we talk about the Carolina game, he gets a puck over the glass, delay of game penalty, and 2 seconds into the power play. There was 2 seconds left in the penalty when Oliver Bjorkstrand tipped another Vince Dunn shot. Dunn had how many points in that game? I think he had 4 or 5. Like he was fantastic in that game, and it's like
and a former future Islander, burns the Islanders once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would, joking about getting him for how long, and here he comes. Maybe he knows he's been hearing us somehow. But this was the first period, and it just felt like they just didn't want to play in this game. And the best part of the game, I got to be honest with you, was in the second period when they were down 3-0, and Ferraro, who's again terrific. Like I could listen to Ray Ferraro talk all day in these games. When they gave up, this was Dunn's goal. He kind of wheeled around and he just wound up and blasted one from distance. And it was almost like a showboaty kind of play. And I don't blame him at all. Like he was just wheeling and the Islanders were giving him all kinds of room. And he just wound up and blasted the thing like he was playing NHL 94. And Ferraro, when he's going through the replay, I don't want to say he tore Pierre Engvall a new one because he didn't. He was very nice about it, but he was completely perplexed as to what Engvall's thought process was in covering Vince Dunn on this goal. And he was just going on and on about how, what are you doing? Why is there no challenge here? What does he do? Does he think he did the pink flamingo where he had like the one leg up or something? Like it was bad. And I was like, thank you, Ray Ferraro, for just tearing into these guys. And particularly this one guy who, I feel like half of the people covering the Islanders only ever ask about him. There's 25 guys on the team, and the only 2 people anybody ever asks questions about are Pierre Engvall and Oliver Wahlstrom. That's it. I'm tired of hearing about these guys. Stop asking Patrick Waugh about Pierre Engvall. If you want to ask somebody about Pierre Engvall, ask the guy who signed him to the 7-year contract, because that's the reason he's still here. If it wasn't for the contract, this dude would be in Bridgeport doing pink flamingo shit against Lehigh Valley, right? So, and without Ray Ferraro calling him out on it. So that to me was maybe the nadir of the whole thing. And at that point, the game was lost. And yeah, okay, fine, they got a couple in the third, but it was as bad as it's been. Everybody was booing them after the second period. People were really letting out the boos, and they deserved it. Like they were awful. And this is, I don't know if I should really be upset at players for not showing up in a game that is on ESPN or ESPN Plus, I guess in this case, or Hulu or whatever it is. But it just somehow that aspect makes it feel worse, because I'm pretty sure nobody's tuning into MSG SN except for us, right? Like we're the only ones tuning into it. But this is a game where somebody theoretically whose team is off that night or just feels like throwing on a game could put on. And this is the product you're showing them. This is really this is the impression you want people to take away. I feel this way whenever they play Hockey Night in Canada too. Like, I mean, even tonight, just in Canada on a Sunday, like I feel like you're showing people who you are when you play these games that outside of your home network. And I'm just like, man, this is what you really want people to think your team is. Like, I couldn't get over it. So it was bad. I'm with you. It was pretty awful. And again, the sight of Lamoriello just watching his team with this sort of like scowling, grumpy cat face on just made me think, what is he thinking about this? And we have to mention, and I'm going to get back to it in a few minutes, the injuries. Obviously, Barzal, Duclair, Pelech, Riley, they're all still out, and nobody knows when they're coming back. Alex Ovechkin broke his leg like 2 weeks ago. He's already skating. We got the pictures of him skating on the no contact jersey. The Caps are still winning. They're anticipating him coming back soon, but I think we're already at the 8-week mark with Duclair. I might be wrong about that. I think we might be approaching the 6-week mark with Barzal. They were both supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks. They might be skating on their own. Nobody knows. Nobody's seen them. There's no pictures. We have no idea when they're coming back or what their status is. So this is the team. And the team that you put out on the ice just got its shit rocked by the Seattle Kraken, who, by the way, also beat the Sabres and the Rangers in the same weekend. So good on the Kraken. But yeah, this was pretty bad, and I'm with you. It was hard to stomach, hard to watch, and hard to justify that we're still here watching these guys. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, and luckily, like I had, Thursday was Emily's birthday, so I actually got to pass on this game.
Oh, excellent.
Which was great. And but the problem is that you see the score after,
right.
I'm sure if it was like 2-1 Islanders or 2-1 Kraken, I would have found some time to tune in, and they made it hard to even fathom doing that because the game was over by the time we were eating dinner, basically. So and you said it right, like it was on ESPN Plus. So the Islanders, we've talked so often about how, and it's not just this season, but last season and even the season before that, how people look at the Islanders and their record and they say, oh man, that's just, bang average hockey team, boring Islanders. And you have to sound like a crazy person, be like, no. Well, yes, but also here's how we got there. Right. Adam Pelech took another puck to the face. Cal Clutterbuck got cut by a skate. They're blowing leads. They've got the worst penalty kill in the history of the game.
Right.
Again, they PTO'd Matt Martin, and then all of a sudden he's playing every game. So it's just like, by the way, as a quick aside, Matt Martin's been pretty good, like lately, in terms of like being Matt Martin and delivering like what his ceiling. I think he's actually done it. So when you serve up a game like that on ESPN, it makes you even seem crazier when you're like, yes, they have been 500, they're at 500, but it's not as simple as that. And the person would say, well, I just watched them on ESPN get run out of their own building by the Seattle Kraken, so I don't know what you're smoking. And you're like, well, fair play, because that did happen, but that was the only game that looked like that this entire season. That was the first time in 15 games, I believe, that the Islanders went into a third period not ahead or tied.
Yeah, that's true.
Which tells you a lot of good and a lot of bad. Mostly bad, mostly infuriating, mostly weird, almost can say it's evil. And you wonder if it's not even the team that's cursed, but it's you watching them. You're like, well, I can, it's very easy for me. When you think about it, it's very easy for me just to stop watching them. I can just not do it. I can delete my Twitter. I can stop. It's a voluntary action to watch this team play, and so maybe it is me that's being tested here, not the team. But the Islanders could cease to exist. It's that easy. The Islanders could really cease to exist from your life if you wanted them to. And a game like that really makes you question if you should do it. And like you, I do think like the picture of Lou. You do wonder, and it's pissing into the wind to get the thoughts of that man, obviously, to be like, I would love to know what's going through his head, because I couldn't even begin to tell you what it is. It's not, because it's not going to be the simple, oh man, this team is terrible. It's something very like stoic and a step back from and looking at the big picture, and we're just trying to control the things we can control, and
if you have time, use it. That kind of thing.
Yeah. It's still early. Yeah. Chris Lamorello found him, actually. I'm still trying to figure out what happened in the third. I'm actually still trying to figure out what happened in the third period against Carolina 2 seasons ago. Yeah. This is part of my investigation.
Right.
But yeah, that was, like I said, if you were a fan who left that game and thought, I still believe in this team, I give you oodles and oodles of credit. And I really hope you're proven right, because that would obviously make us a lot happier. But it was tough, man. That was a rough 24 hours, especially with what was to come from the hockey world. And there are a lot of teams that are struggling in terms of like record wise, the same way as the Islanders are. The Sabres won like 4 games in a row, and everyone's like, finally, like this looks like it. This one looks for real. And you just looked at, as soon as I started to see people say that about the Sabres, it's like, Well, now we know what's going to happen. Like, this team is going to lose 3 or 4 in a row, and the
Right.
Islanders were lucky enough to play them as part of it, and they've done it. They've lost. I think they've won 3 of 10, and the Senators, of course, have been start to start the season. The Penguins have been up and down. They were down and then they're up. And the Predators have been a disaster out in the West.
They've lost 7 in a row.
Yeah, so like the Islanders are not high up on like the pecking order, so there's no real pressure on them. I mean, when we talk about the Rangers, I'm going to bring this up in further point, but there's really no. You look at Lou looking out on that team, and what real pressure is on him? Like, I don't think there's any, right? Like, I know people think, oh, they're thinking about there's whispers about a regime change. Like, yeah, of course, he's 81. There's always going to be a succession plan when your general manager is that old. And I don't mean to sound ageist or anything, but that's just a reality, right? Like, he's 81 years old. So yes, there's always going to be a succession plan talked about and bandied about, but there's nothing imminent here. I'd be shocked if there's something imminent. So there's no pressure from the media because, as you said, the only questions that get asked are about what you need to see about Pierre Engvall. I thought one of the funniest parts of the week was after that Canadiens game, the first question asked to Patrick Waugh wasn't, hey, you guys couldn't find a way to score again and you lost in overtime for the 23rd time in 2 seasons. It was, hey, did you get an explanation about why that penalty was overturned?
Yeah.
when the ref explained on the microphone to everybody in the building, probably in 2 languages, why the penalty got overturned. But like there really is no pressure on because of the and like that's the same in a lot of different markets, right? The Islanders aren't the only one that doesn't have a media circus following them around and picking through their trash and going to
Most
farms.
of them, though.
Yeah, right. Like, so this isn't a new thing, but so I don't think there is any pressure. So maybe that's what Lou's thinking. He's just like, this is all right. Like,
yeah, there was a report that Lou Lamoriello is far from safe on Long Island, and it's like, yeah, okay, but I mean, why? Like, there's no, my thing is, who are they going to talk to? Like, they'd have to talk, like John Ledecky or Scott Malcolm would have to like literally talk to somebody else,
right,
to bring him in.
And he's Lou Lamoriello, so like he's like going to just be in charge of the process of John, Scott. Right. I will tell you who will be the next GM after me. Don't worry, I have it covered. Don't listen to what Chris Johnston or anybody else is saying. I will take care of it. It's like that's how it's gonna work. It's not gonna. This is not a traditional. This isn't like Kevin Adams being under pressure with the Sabres, where the Sabres you could wake up tomorrow and he's gone.
Right.
This is a very different situation, and I think a lot of people in the media don't understand that, or they don't treat it that way. That for one, once again, he's 81, and 2, he's Lou Lamoriello, so like, of course he's going to be in charge of this stuff. So
but like you said, I mean, they don't have a media circus, so there's no like Darren Dreger, whispering in Pat Brisson's ear about who's going to be the next Leafs GM or whatever, that kind of thing. So there's none of that. But yeah, so it was a pretty down time. Nobody knows what Lou was thinking, but his face kind of said all it needed to say. And oh, good, here come the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon, I should say. And I think like most people probably figured the Islanders were going to lose this game. My wife and I were hosting a holiday party. It was a Nightmare Before Christmas party. We had a lot of fun. I wore a Batman ugly sweater. She wore a Nightmare Before Christmas ugly sweater. But I had the game on. This is the second year in a row, by the way, we've had a party at Christmas, and I had the Islanders on while the guests were there, and nobody has said a word. Nobody's bothered me about it. And so I've tortured these people probably long enough and was bad-mouthing the team the entire time. And of course, then I look like a fool because they ended up winning 4-3. It didn't look like that at first. And in fact, I was cooking still when I popped my head out during the first period. And I swear to you, this is all I saw of the first period. I came back in just as they were coming back from commercial. I see Scott Mayfield in the penalty box. And I'm like, okay, this is where the Hurricanes go up 1-0. And sure enough, Andrei Svechnikov, power play goal, 1-0 Hurricanes. And I went right back into the kitchen and kept on cooking again. Because I'm like, all right, well, I've seen this movie before. But then, second period, the story gets flipped on its head. Dobson, nice pass to J.G. Pajot to tie the game. Svechnikov did have another power play goal with Anders Lee high sticking in the penalty box. But then 40 seconds later, Oliver Wahlstrom shows that he's still alive, and he actually scores a beautiful goal off a turnover, which was really cool. We're tied at 2. Then Siplikov scores on his own rebound, 3-2 at that point. And then, oh my God, Bo Horvat has scored a goal. JG Pageau, nice pass all the way. Bo one-times it from the dot. It was a beautiful goal. His first goal in 13 games. He did the gladiator, are you not entertained thing. He did the whole, run down the line with all the high fives. It was actually a very, very cool moment that I really wish never happened. Like, I really wish Bo didn't have to wait 13 games. He's been playing great. He just didn't score. So that must have felt good, as Brendan said. And you're like, holy crap, these guys are 4-2 going into the third. This is going to really suck when they blow this. As I told all of our party goers at that point, people were there, and I'm like, well, they're going to blow this. So after the game is over, we'll put on The Nightmare Before Christmas. Unfortunately, I've seen this movie before, and I know what's going to happen. The Islanders are going to blow this lead. The Hurricanes are going to tie the game, and then they're going to go to overtime or a shootout, and the Islanders are going to lose there. So the movie won't be on anytime soon. But again, somehow they managed to win. They gave up 19 shots to Carolina in the third period. Ilya Sorokin was huge. Jesper Kotkaniemi did score, and it did get dicey for a while, but Sorokin was fantastic. He made 28 saves in the game. JG Pageau had 3 points. It was a good performance. Wasn't perfect. They were still 1 for 3 on the penalty kill. They allowed a lot of shots on goal, but felt pretty good. And as I told my friends who were there, my friend's son was there too. The sons were there, and I was like, yeah, well, this just means they're going to lose 8-2 in Ottawa tomorrow. And sure enough, I thought that. But they go into Ottawa and they win 4-2. Again, not a great game, if I'm being honest. This game made me kind of mad. Sorokin was terrific. He, again, made 28 saves on a back-to-back. But I remember a time when, thank God I'm not on Twitter anymore, because I remember a time when starting a goalie on a back-to-back was a fireable offense. This was like, oh my God, what are you doing? The charts, the numbers, they say you can't do that. Well, at least Sorokin just proved those charts to be wrong. They got off to a terrible start, though. Ridley Gregg went around the D to Adam Gaudette, who's having a fantastic season. 1-0 Ottawa. Lee gets maybe the easiest power play goal Anders Lee has ever scored, or certainly has scored in the last couple of seasons, ties the game. Kyle McLean crashes the net, scores a goal. The Islanders only had 5 shots on goal in that first period, but they were up 2-1. Of course, Kyle Palmieri takes a penalty at the end. And what does that mean? Josh Norris gets his own easy power play goal, 37 seconds into the second. Second period is mostly Senators. Still mostly Senators all the way through the third, but then Palmieri scores his own power play goal with about 6 minutes to go. Anton Forsberg only made 9 saves in the game. He was not good. But the Senators were swarming. And then Horvat, again, 2 goals in back-to-back games. He scores an empty netter from about 150 feet away. Shots were 31-13 in favor of the Senators. It was not good. They were 2 for 2 on the power play, which is good, but they were 1 for 3 on the penalty kill, which is about their norm. This was not a fun game to watch. If I was a Senators fan, this game would have made me quit this team entirely. Like, you guys can't beat these guys. They're almost letting you win the game, and you just couldn't do it. So this one kind of bothered me. And as I said before, I think this game might have made me more mad than had they just lost, because I feel like I know what's coming up, and I'll get to it in a few minutes after getting your take on this. So, all things considered, they picked up 4 points over the weekend, which is huge. But again, like you said, if you look under the surface, these were not really particularly well played games. The second period against the Hurricanes sure was, but that's about it. Ilya Sorokin he's not going to win a star NHL Star of the Week this week, but he should, because without him, the Islanders don't take any of these points, let alone all 4. So, we're sitting here right after the Senators game. I'm sure, we were both happy after that Carolina game, but it feels good to get these points. But as we're going to look at very shortly, there's still a lot of work to do, as we've been saying this whole time.
There's definitely some like good positive things bubbling under the surface, I would say. But they're not like big picture things. So like Max Siplikov continues to be great.
Lee's been terrific.
Terrific.
Yeah.
You know what I was saying to my we were talking about Siplikov a little bit, and a couple of me and my friends, and I was like, it's funny because he's not playing hockey. Like, he's not playing 24, 25 style hockey. He really seems like a throwback to the dead puck era, like a player who would just be a dominant player in 1997. I could see him on the San Jose Sharks or like the Philadelphia Flyers in like those the Capitals maybe in those like late 90s. and being one of those kind of big Russian forwards who scores 40 goals for like 3 seasons and then disappears. Maybe like Alexei Morozov. Remember when that guy scored like
Oh yeah,
a ton of goals for a little while? Then he just was like,
yeah.
he's like, I'm out.
He was a Penguin for a while, right?
Yeah, Penguin.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But he's been awesome. I kind of tongue in cheek mentioned Matt Martin, but I do think he's been like frustratingly good because he's doing exactly what Matt Martin needs to do to not be a liability in a way. And I don't know what the numbers say. I'm sure they're not all that pretty, but and then Oliver Wahlstrom has been okay in the past couple games. Like his game has been a little bit better than normal. Dobson was terrible for the first 2 games of the season. I mean, of the week, I thought. And then he's been okay the past couple games. And of course, Sorokin has been really, really good. I think that people kind of focused. He was a couple, not not even the Kraken game, but there was a game before that where people were blaming him for the loss because he'd given up 4 or 5 goals or whatever. And I thought it was like maybe a little unfair because he's been really good for the most part of the season. So like hell, even like Dennis Cholowski's been pretty good. Isaiah George, like there are some good things. Horvat scored, but so that stuff is positive, but it doesn't fix the fatal flaws.
Yeah,
the Islanders at one point had allowed 6 goals on their last 7 penalty kills. When they had given up those 2 goals, the second goal to the Hurricanes, I believe.
Like that's just Bush League, man. Like come on.
That's I can't remember a stretch like that. Even going back to last year. Last year it was like, man, we were complaining because they were giving up 2 out of 5. We're like, how can you be giving up two power play goals every 5 penalty kills? and now it's 6 out of 8 or 6 out of 7. That's so hard to do to be that bad. And this is to the point of like why it's frustrating to hear the focus after games being on referees explaining high stick penalties or Pierre Engvall. What do you need to see from Pierre Engvall? How about why the hell has this not been fixed yet? Like how can it's almost by accident that the penalty kill should get better. You should just get lucky like 3 or 4 times in a row and kill off a few penalties. Or I was joking around with a couple people like, well, at this point you can't get worse than historically bad. So why aren't you going like 4 forwards? Why aren't you going 4 defensemen?
Right.
Why aren't you just doing whatever, putting all 4 guys on the goal line? I don't know. Like you can't get worse. So try some weird shit. But they do. I thought the Hurricanes game was good. Like I thought they were actually pretty good throughout. The third period gave me a little bit of flashbacks to the game that they blew in the playoffs, game 2. Where the Hurricanes were down and then just like outshot the Islanders 30-3 or something like that. But they held the fort. Sorokin was great, and the problem was you couldn't even be happy about the win because they had another game the next night,
right? And
even that game wasn't going to make you happy because they had so much more. Like they can win the back-to-back, they can get 4 points, and even if they looked really good doing it, this team has proven itself to be so inconsistent and so infuriating that you can't even get your hopes up after that because that just puts you back to NHL 500, and you have another week to go before you could start thinking, oh man, like maybe they are finally getting onto a run. There's so much more work to do. So it's such an annoying place to be in as a fan where the wins they're not satisfying. All they are is ticked boxes, and you need to tick a lot more boxes for any of this to matter. So pretty it's just as you said, like you try, like you're as a fan, you're supposed to be happy about a win. So I'm happy they won both the games, but I'm also it makes you mad in a weird way that you're mad about at that just the team. You're even, like you said, madder at the team after wins than you are after losses.
Well, and it's also the way they play too. Like they just don't play in a very flowy, enjoyable style, right? Like I said, they look like they're skating in week-old mashed potatoes. Like it's just the passes don't connect. The headman passes don't really connect. The Hurricanes game had a bunch of actually really cool scoring plays, which is very rare for them, and that's another reason why I thought they were going to blow it. But the penalty kill, before I get into my whole thing that I want to get into, the penalty kill thing drives me obviously insane. And the thing that gets me the most is like a lot of people online are like, well, you know what? This team hasn't been healthy. We're not seeing the full lineup. We got to get Barzal and Duclair back and Pelech too. And it's like, yeah, but here's the thing. Barzal and Duclair don't kill penalties. So even if they were to come back and score a bunch of goals, which I think we would assume that they would, they're not going to fix the biggest problem that this team has, which is that they keep giving up power play goals every single time they have to kill a penalty. And Adam Pelech, if I may remind everybody, has been part of the worst penalty kill in the league for the better part of 2 years now. So I can't even get excited for that because it's like, okay, maybe their power play will be a little bit better, but even still, they got shut out 3 times in the first 6 games with those guys. So I can't really get all excited about this whole kind of idea that, well, if they hang around and then they bring those guys back, they'll be even better. A, we don't know when they're coming back. And B, this team still has a lot of problems even with those guys. And that's where I want to get to like sort of my major point, which is that if you look at the standings right now, following these 2 games, the Islanders have 29 points, which is the same as the Rangers. And if you look at the wildcard standings, they're right behind the Rangers, who are in the second wildcard spot. But then you look a little deeper and it's like, okay, well, the Islanders have played 29 games to this point. The Rangers have 3 games in hand on them. They've only played 26. The Lightning, who are in the first wildcard spot with only 30 points, one more than the Islanders and Rangers, they've only played 25 games to this point. So they have 4 games in hand on the Islanders. And of course, the Islanders don't have tiebreakers on any of these teams because they only have 8 regulation wins, which is amongst the lowest totals in the league. And, they're not the highest scoring team. They don't have the most goals against, whatever the other tiebreakers are. So it's like one person could look at this and be like, man, they're right there. They're right in right outside of a wild card spot, but they're really not. Like, they're closer to missing the playoffs than they are to making the playoffs, because if either the Lightning or Rangers win any of these games in hand, well, that's the end. And all of a sudden they're way out ahead of the Islanders. And so I thought about this after the Seattle game because I watched Patrick Waugh's post availability after the game and then his practice availability for the next day. And he kept talking about how he likes to focus on the positives and the things that people are doing good. And it occurred to me that I feel like a problem with this team, and maybe it's just me looking too deeply into a team that is very hard to watch sometimes and is very frustrating to watch. I feel like this team is kind of drowning in a sea of toxic positivity. I feel like they are so keyed into keeping positive, staying positive. We got this. We can do this, that they have yet to actually examine the problems that they have. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we'll get, we won a game despite giving up another 2 power play goals. And so that kind of gives them the right or the chance to not fix the penalty kill. Like, that should be the thing you're doing, but because you can get by and because you're quote unquote right there with this shitty penalty kill, nobody seems to be in a hurry to fix it. And it's like, again, the Pierre Engvall thing. It's like, well, I want to focus on the positives of him. Okay, he's didn't kill anybody on the ice, I guess. I don't know what is he doing out there that he continues. The reason he still has this spot is, again, because he's got a contract that is completely untenable. And also, by focusing on Pierre Engvall, we have yet to talk about how Kyle McLean, despite his goal tonight, has been one of the worst players in the league all season long. Matt Martin may be playing okay for Matt Martin, but why is Matt Martin even here? Like, why are we still playing Matt Martin? And listen, it's not personal. We love Matt Martin, but like, he's here because they don't have any other options. And it's like, there's nobody's like actually sit down. And I'm not saying they need to like tear the team apart and like, be all negative all the time. That's our job. We're the fans. The name of the show is Islanders Anxiety. But like, I feel like they're almost too positive. And this team has just such a healthy, confidence in itself because of all the times they've come back in the past, that they don't really examine their problems and they don't really think about, why do we keep giving up power play goals? Why does our power play stink? Okay, they got a couple this weekend. That's great. Maybe it'll, finally start to get hot. But like, I don't know. I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Like, I've heard this term before, toxic positivity. It's just, you can't really like think it's great to be positive, but at the same time, you can be too positive and it prevents you from really examining what's going on. And I get what Patrick Waugh is trying to do. He's trying to stay positive and keep the players positive. But I think in this case, with this team and all of the things that they just don't do right, and especially if you watch other teams in the league, I just don't think it's helping. I really think that they need to examine what's wrong with these guys. And like, why do they just not look and play like anybody else? And how do they think they can get away with it and just make the playoffs? I don't know. It's funny because like my best friend and his sons were at the party we had on Saturday, and the kids are in high school and middle school, and they were talking about making the playoffs. And I'm like, guys, I got news for you. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. He's like, and they were both like, you don't? I'm like, no, how are they going to make the playoffs? And one of the older one was like, well, but the same way they did last year, sort of, towards the end of the season. I'm like, guys, I just don't see it happening. I just don't think they have it. Like, I can't see it. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they're spending too much time trying to be positive and trying to uplift everybody without being like, we got to fix this. We can't go on. We can't exist with the worst power play and the worst penalty kill all season long. So I don't know. What do you think? Like I mentioned it before. You wanted to hear my spiel. That's my spiel. Toxic positivity is maybe killing this team, but I don't know. Am I crazy?
Yes, but not for this. Like it's I've never heard the term before, so I really liked it. The last time the word toxic was thrown around on this podcast, it was by the New York Times.
Oh, of course.
In their review of Islander, the one-man off-Broadway play about
toxic masculinity. That is also truly a thing.
Our very toxic masculine podcast here. But I don't even know if it's positivity. It's more like how a teacher talks to his or her students when maybe like you got like a D- on like a tough subject. And you're like, oh man, this student, like he tried his best. I think I'm not totally sure where he's at or she's at here, but I'm going to be positive and say, look, like there's still time left in the school year for you to pass. If you get a good grade on the final, you'll be fine. That's how I almost look at it, because that's how they talk. It is strange though. Like I try my best to watch every post game, or at least read the quotes from every post game, just to make myself mad at this exact attitude. Like we joke about it in our chat all the time about how when it's the Islanders are down like 2-0 in the first period, we're like, oh well, liked our pushback in the third, just got to focus on the next one. And I do want to acknowledge that athletes are basically conditioned to think in cliches and to never look back, because you always have to focus on the next shift and the next game and the next shot and whatever. But at the same time, as fans, it's infuriating to not hear a team whose problems seem very black and white, not just address them. We joked around about how Simon Holmstrom has been like the only person to like say out loud the boogeyman third period blown leads. And when they talk about the penalty kill, it's not like, yeah, it sucks, and if we don't, it's like driving me up a wall that these guys that my teammates can't kill a penalty. But and we're not asking for that. I'm not asking for Bo Horvat to come out and be like, I have no idea why Casey Cizikas can't kill a goddamn penalty anymore. But at the same time, I would like somebody to be like, yeah, like it's got to change. I don't know what we're doing, and I'm not totally sure how we're putting up with this right now, because it's been not just this season. It's not an anomaly. It's been 2 seasons now where 100 plus games where we've had a historically bad penalty that's clipping it at below 70%. That must drive a fan up the wall to see a referee's arm go up and your stomach sink, because you know that they're going to score. But yeah, nobody says that. And that's maybe just by not addressing it is being too positive, because it is the same thing over and over again. The only player who seems to come out and seem to be on the same side as the fans, well, Barzal used to, we when he was healthy, but we used to joke that there's no bigger Islander fan than Matt Barzal. And but Kyle Palmieri is like the only one. He'll be like, yeah, we were shit, that's shitty and whatever. But that nobody else seems to go that way. It's much more athlete speak. And I like I said, I don't want anyone to throw other people under the bus, and especially in this day and age with like how things are taken out of context. But it would be nice to see like someone peel the paint in the room, or we used to make fun of players only meeting. And I maybe they've had them, but nothing gets out of that room, so who knows? But it's just a different group compared to so many teams in sports where you just blew a third period lead, and then the next day these guys are all at some like their teammates their child's christening or something. It's like it's just very different. So it's almost like a weird thing to be like, yeah, like we should have played better, and then the next day you're clinking at 2 Miller Lights together with the guy who you blew the game with, right? It's
Well, Anders Lee mentioned like they've had meetings and stuff about the blown leads, I think is what he said. And I was like, really? Like I was shocked. I was like, well, this is the first I'm hearing of it. And I guess, listen, I'm only a fan. I'm not even a paying customer. I'm just sitting here talking. But like, that was shocking to me that they've had meetings. I'm like, really? Nobody let us know that you guys are having meetings. I guess it's good that you're having meetings.
Yeah,
but,
the meeting took place at the VFW in Garden City for Casey Cizikas' kid's baptism.
Yeah, exactly.
We were over at the corner. We were online getting our
Right.
penne, and me and Bo had a chat about how it's
Yeah.
annoying that we can't kill a penalty in the third period right now. And so yeah, that goes down as a meeting.
Right. We had a meeting at Mayfield's house at a barbecue.
Yeah, we were watching Sunday Night Football at Scott's house, and we had the solo stove going, and we just talked through it. It was a good players only meeting. Well, I mean, Patrick was there, but that's just because he lives down the block, but it still counts as a players only meeting because Lou wasn't there. But it was a nice night. Good to get the boys together for a fantasy football night.
Right. And Scott really promised to try not to take any more penalties. Then he took one in the first period against the Hurricanes. And, well, you know what happens. Like, yeah, okay. So, like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. Like, these guys love each other so much and they're so tight. And that's a very admirable thing. And, like, I just, that's the kind of thing we've talked about before in the show. Like, we wish that other people would recognize that and be like, instead of being like, oh my God, this team is so boring. The Athletic Hockey Show said the Islanders are the most uninteresting team in the NHL. They're not entirely wrong, from a playing perspective, they are certainly very uninteresting. But their camaraderie and their brotherhood is an admirable thing, and it's really great. But it's a throwback. But
it's like what Army football teams in like the 1930s were like.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that guy. They're best friends until they're 76 because they played together for Bart Starr or whoever was the coach back then. They used to win one for the Gipper, and that was their, and now they're still together.
Right, and you're a war historian. You're always making allusions to like living in the foxholes and stuff like that, and that's what these guys are, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's also what's kind of brought them to the situation they're in now, where it's the same guys who now just can't do the job the same way, and they're all on long-term contracts for the most part, except for the UFAs, obviously, and they haven't really upgraded where they need to. And I don't know if they're having those tough conversations about why they can't kill penalties and why that they give up third period leads and why that, they just kind of sat back and let the Hurricanes tee off on them for 20 minutes, or why they get off to these slow starts and why they can't do this, that, and the other thing. So it's tough. And I just wish that, as great as positive, I wish I was a more positive person in my life in general, but I wish that these guys would inject just a little bit more toughness. I don't know if cynicism is the right word, but just a little bit more like negativity and be like, what is going on here? Like, we need to fix this. We can't keep doing this. We have to fix this.
We're going to talk about a pretty famous newspaperman in the next half, but that's what I want. I want some of that like old 1960s, 70s, 80s cynicism that you'd get from those kind of like newspaper media members, right? Like that like a little sharpness of the, like something sharp off the tongue would be nice. And yeah, that just hasn't been that way. And I do think it is a product of the fact that these guys are, we joke about them being the uncles, but that's just what they are. Right. Like it's gotta be just a funny experience to be a professional athlete in this type of environment where you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to get a coffee. Does anybody need a ride? Does anybody need me to pick one up for you on the way? Like,
right.
It's not normal. And it also is just part of the DNA. I mean, Clark Gillies and Bob Bourne's kids are married to one another.
Yeah, right.
It's like, there was a patch where we had mercenary teams, and that was the outlier. Felt like those, those eras were more bizarre than this, but because it's just what Long Island I think is as a place as well. Like, yeah, of course Long Island would have a team where they're all at each other's, their kid's third birthday party. Like, there's Bluey, who's dressed, Matt Martin's dressed up as Santa Claus at the family Christmas party again. Like, and guess who's still here? Like, the Baileys and the Clutterbucks are still here, and
well,
Seidenbergs.
It goes even beyond the Bourne Gillies connection. I mean, they got Dennis Potvin because they went out and got his brother, right? Like they brought in Jean Potvin to make Dennis feel more comfortable because it's his brother. Why wouldn't they? And it worked. So yeah, it goes back, and it is a familiar thing, and it's great when it works. But I think we're beyond the point of it working, and it's sad. But
and it makes it harder to be mad when it doesn't work, because you're like, well, it's like being mad at your family. I don't want to be mad at my family.
Exactly. Yeah. So okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk real quick about the next couple of games, and then we're gonna get into another look at what's going on over in Manhattan, because it was a very busy weekend for those boys. Okay, so meet us on the other side. Thanks. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always vintageicehockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is vintageicehockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a top 100 best buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. Okay, so the Islanders have 3 games coming up this week against 2 teams, because they have a back-to-back against the same team. On Tuesday, first, they got to play the LA Kings, who are on a bit of a hot streak right now. That's at UBS Arena, 7:30 start as usual. And then it's back-to-back games against the dead last place Chicago Blackhawks. First, it's Thursday, 7:30 at UBS Arena. They have Friday, Saturday off, which is very nice. And then on Sunday at 3 o'clock, they are at the United Center against the same Blackhawks. The Kings are the Kings. They, here we are talking about a team that, has not changed all that much. And the Kings, you would think that way, but they actually have changed quite a bit. It's just that Anze Kopitar is still there and Drew Doughty. They're the 2 guys who are still there. But they go through these hot streaks, I think. But right now they're playing pretty well. I'm pretty sure they have five straight wins, if I'm not mistaken. And they're pretty good. So that's going to be a tough one. Although last year around this time, they did come back and beat the Kings in overtime. Around in the same month as actually that's what happened the last time we had a Christmas party. The Blackhawks games, though, are going to be pretty interesting. It's been a bad season for them, which isn't surprising, but it's been a bad season for Connor Bedard, who only has, I think, 5 or 6 goals to this point. He hasn't really played all that well. It's been a rotating selection of line mates for him. Taylor Hall was hurt for a while, then he was scratched, and these guys just haven't put it together. And it cost Coach Luke Richardson his job. And so Anders Sorensen is the new coach for the Blackhawks. He's coached 1 game. They lost. And I don't know if they have a game in between their game against the Islanders, but if they don't, congratulations, Anders Sorensen, on your first win again as coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, because it'll probably come in one of these 2 games. It'll either come at UBS Arena or at the United Center. I don't really have a lot to say about these 2 Western Conference teams. Again, the Blackhawks thing has been kind of weird. I have friends who are Blackhawks fans, and they've, again, they're not surprised the team has been bad. It's just getting to the point where, like, we were supposed to be a little bit better, and this Bedard dude was supposed to be really, really good, and his season has not been so far. But anything you've noticed from either the Kings or the Blackhawks that we should know about coming into these couple of games?
No, other than I'll just remind everyone, and I don't think Drew Doughty's back. I think he's still hurt, but he did have a quote probably a decade ago now that I'll never forget, where he said he's never watched an Islander game ever. He's like I've never even thought about that team. So I always like beating him and the Kings just for that. But yeah, this is part of like just the ongoing discussion about the Islanders and their future. And you look at the Blackhawks and they get Connor Bedard, and I know it's only been the second year of it, but it's going in the wrong direction. Like, you're supposed to. It's not that everything will be linear, but if you look around the league, like these teams that are the ones who've torn it down to the studs in terms of their rebuilds, not working out the way that it's supposed to have so far. Not that, like we said, not that the Blackhawks should be in the playoff mix or anything, but they're just, it doesn't look like it's going to be as simple as, oh yeah, all you need to do is get Connor Bedard and your problems will be solved. It's not that simple of a sport. And if you look around the standings, it's not just them. Like Utah, good start, and then now they're they've the shine's come off them. Obviously the Ducks, there's like problems in their locker room apparently. Part of the reason that they went out and got this guy Jacob Trouba. Don't even need to go into the team they played tonight, the Senators or the Sabres and the Red Wings. But yeah, it's just a reminder to when you are someone, in the Canadians too, when you are someone who thinks that it's as simple as just snapping your fingers and a 5-year rebuild is done and the Islanders are winning Stanley Cups. It's not. So that's the one thing that the Blackhawks should serve as a reminder for. But yeah, the only thing I'll say is that you just gotta find a way to get 4 out of 6 points from this at a minimum. Yeah. Whether you get, hey, maybe you can string together your first 3-game winning streak of the season by beating the Kings, and then all of a sudden you're staring at a pretty decent chance of extending that to 5, and then the toxic positivity. I'll listen to it, right? Like that's when I'll start to be like, okay. Because the Islanders are right now at a point where they needed a 5-game winning streak just to get into the mix, and they're still 3 wins short of that. And hell, I'll even take a win out of 4 out of 5. We saw it with the Penguins; they won a few in a row. The Flyers have won a few in a row. And on the inverse, like with the Rangers free falling as well. Like the Bruins were also in the same spot as the Islanders. They've won 4 in a row or something like that, and now they look comfortably in a playoff spot. And then, like I said about the Rangers, like the inverse is also true, where one of these teams could fall. So the Islanders just need to string wins together. Like there's no excuse not to. You got a lucky one against the Senators. I think we can all say they earned the one against the Hurricanes one way or another, but then Sorokin stole one against the Senators. Make it count. Like make it count. Part of that toxic positivity, I don't think we mentioned, is like, it seems like this team, after they do one thing well, they're like, that's us done then. Like we were up 2-1. Like that's hard enough to do. Like we accomplished that, so we can rest on our laurels. We won a game. We beat the Hurricanes last night, so we don't need to show up in Ottawa. That's what it looked like tonight until Sorokin stole it. But yeah, if they could just not rest on their laurels here, play a good game against the Kings and get 2 points, then we can really start to feel some sort of momentum for the first time this season building. Which, man, it's December. Like the Islanders don't have a 3-game winning streak yet, and we're going to be looking at December 9th, 10th, and 11th before they even have the chance to do it. So
they only just picked up their second 2-game winning streak tonight.
And this was their first game in which they scored multiple power play goals in the same game.
Right, it's crazy. So yeah, no, you're right. A couple of points though about the Blackhawks that I forgot. One, they just put Peter Mrazek, one-time Islanders playoff hero in a sense, on long-term injured reserve. So I have no idea who their goalie is going to be when they play. And also, they have some guys down in the minors that are playing pretty well. One of them, Kevin Korchinski, just got called up. And Frank Nazar, who's played pretty well down there, he might get called up probably for this game at some point. He is the guy who the Blackhawks drafted with the pick that the Islanders traded to the Canadiens for Alex Romanov. So the Islanders traded the pick to the Habs for Romanov. The Habs turned around and traded that pick to the Blackhawks for Kirby Dach, and then the Blackhawks took Frank Nazar. So I think he scored again. He might have scored against the Islanders last year. I'm not even sure. But if he gets called up, he's the guy who's like, they probably could have been an Islander, but he's playing pretty well. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm with you. Get 4 out of these 6 points. If you blow the Blackhawks game on Sunday afternoon and United Center, hey, what are you going to do? But there's really no excuse to not get at least 4 of these points. Maybe they lose to the Kings and then beat the Blackhawks twice. Do that. That's fine. Whatever. But you got to get something. Or like I said, if they beat the Kings, then yeah, that's a 3-game winning streak. So we'll have to see how it goes. But again, these are games you can win. So sadly, the Kings don't have a game the night before, as far as I can tell. So that's usually a kind of thing that I hope for when the Islanders play these Western Conference teams, but not yet. No such luck this time. So we'll see. But yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Sunday against the Kings and Blackhawks. Okay, we've teased it long enough. We must once again venture into the greatest city in the world to look at the New York Rangers, the most messed up hockey team in the world. No, I'm just kidding. They're not the most messed up. But this week was an exciting one for them. We started hearing word, was it Thursday maybe, that something was brewing with Captain Jacob Trouba. They might put him on waivers. There were stories that he wasn't going to be put on waivers the next day, which is always kind of like a weird thing. Turns out it wasn't waivers. It was, in fact, a trade. And by, I believe it was Friday, we finally got the end of this long and sordid tale of Jacob Trouba getting run out of town by the very people that once, justified every single elbow to the head that he had delivered in his 6 seasons as a Ranger. He was traded to the Anaheim Ducks for a 4th-round pick and a defenseman, frankly, whose name I am not going to try and pronounce because I'm going to ruin it. Oh, here it is. It's Urho Vakanainen, was the young defenseman who was a healthy scratch for the Ducks for a while. He's coming back this way along with a conditional 4th-round pick. You found this incredibly hilarious. We're going to get to the other end of this deal in a second in a Ranger piece theater coming up shortly. But this whole thing has been fun for you in particular because we talked about this, and we talked about this over the summer, going back to the Rangers being eliminated in the playoffs, which is like, we really hoped that this entire crazy Trouba situation in which he was immediately turned into like public enemy number one, and his poor wife was involved. The reason he's in a Ranger almost in the first place is because she's a doctor in New York City. And we hoped that it had sown some sort of discord in the Rangers locker room. And frankly, for once, it turns out we must have been right, because this went sideways right from the get-go this season. And Trouba, in fact, admitted that it was hard for him to captain the Rangers when he didn't know, how long he was going to be here for. So when you finally found out that Jacob Trouba was being moved to the Anaheim Ducks, and we got more information as things went on, what was your sort of emotional process like there? It's annoying because, like you said before, the Rangers do eventually get everything they want as usual, as we'll go through step by step. But this was like one of those kind of like old school, exciting Twitter hockey happenings that we don't really get that much anymore.
Yes. Yeah. It was fun until it wasn't fun anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But and even so, like, the jury's still out whether, the way it was handled was, will continue to sow discord in the room, and the team won't ever, respond. And
they're 1-1 without him just over this weekend.
And they continue just to play bad teams. I don't understand if the Rangers, they just keep, their schedule is ridiculous. But, they lost 7-5 to the Kraken.
Right.
On Sunday. They, in a game that they were up 3-1, then they were down 6-3, scored 2 goals. Ridiculously lucky. There's a couple ridiculously lucky Ranger goals involved there, and all of a sudden it's 6-5, and you're like, oh great, like this is a no quit New York all over Twitter win, and then they lost, so thank God for that. But so what I think the gist of what we were saying over the summer was that the Rangers, the hockey gods, seem to give the Rangers a longer leash than any team, and not just hockey, but just sports. Like, they get ridiculous bounces, they get a great whistle. Obviously, if they got a ton of money, everyone wants to play there because it's in Manhattan, no matter how the GM treats the team. It's a very charmed existence to be a Ranger fan, despite and they'll know that fact is lost on Ranger fans. Yeah. Which is, it's not lost on us, but it's definitely lost on them. Like, they think no one's had it harder than the poor old blue shirts, those scrappy upstarts over there, just trying to rub a couple nickels together to stay in the Eastern Conference Final. But I thought the way that they handled the Barclay Goodrow situation was kind of spitting in the face of the hockey gods. Like, we just gave you every bounce imaginable in a season where you won the President's Trophy and you lost in the Eastern Conference Final to the eventual Stanley Cup champion. Most teams would just be kind of, oh man, like, we'll try again next time. But what a ride, fun team, great job, everyone. Like, we'll try again next year. But no, the Rangers decide to go behind the back of one of their alternate captains, I believe Barclay Goodrow was, and do him dirty. And not only was it beneficial to their cap sheet, but it was praised. Ruthless. Right. You got to be ruthless in this league to win. And that was the party line. Everybody got on board. Nobody thought, this team, that's maybe not the type of thing you do to a sports team, because these locker rooms tend to be tight. And if you see your buddy treated that way, you think, hey, I could be next. But then it gets out that Trouba is also, they're trying to do him dirty. He's the captain of the team. It's okay though. You just got to be ruthless. Like, they got writers. they got their media contingent doing, carrying the water to kind of frame it in a, it's just business, baby. That's what the money's for situation. Doesn't work, but that's okay. He's a pro. He'll come back and try his best, and doesn't work out. He's obviously having a tough season. I wonder why.
I know. Shocking.
Hey man, we don't want you here, but be sure to continue to jump in front of vulcanized rubber for us.
Oh, and by the way, there's people in this city and in the surrounding environs that hate your wife, and and blame her for you being bad and us losing in the playoffs. Just you're cool with that, right? Is that cool? Okay, that's cool. We just want to make sure.
And you all the stuff that we said about like the first 4 years of you being here, like when you were clocking guys in the head and we were defending you to the hills and we loved you. Yeah, we don't mean that anymore. That was disingenuous, actually. So why don't you fuck off to Detroit or something?
My friend, our friend Adam Gretz, who we had on Weird Islanders podcast, had a great line. He said that Trouba is going to clock Panarin in the first game against the Rangers, and Larry Brooks is going to write a column so scorching that the pages of the New York Post will literally catch fire. Brooks cannot wait for the first time that Trouba hits some Ranger in a way that, is kind of skirting the letter of the NHL rulebook, and he's just going to let him have it. He's just, this is what he always does. Yeah, we know, Larry. We know. Yeah.
Oh man. But yes, exactly. And so like that all is going down. And remember, wounds are still very fresh from the Islanders' loss to the Kraken. The Rangers are also struggling at the time. The Islanders, there doesn't seem to be a solution. The Rangers, their solution is we're going to threaten the captain with waivers. And well, first they threatened him with a healthy scratch, then they threatened him with waivers.
Right. Yeah,
and then they finally got the trade. And in my head, so I was actually on Friday morning, I took Isla to the Long Island Children's Museum.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I wore my Mike Must Go sweatshirt that Usher Maddie got me. Because I wanted everyone at the Long Island Children's Museum to know how I was feeling about the New York Islanders at the time. And I'm sure everybody saw me with my Mike Must Go sweatshirt on. We're like, oh man, that guy is really upset about the Islanders, because everyone would recognize the MikeMustGo.com sweatshirt as the quintessential piece of clothing to signify that. So I'm chasing Isla around there, and I'm trying to do my best to be, engaged with her. And honestly, I think I did a pretty good job of like checking my phone every 10 minutes or so to see what was going on, because it was right as all this was unfolding. And I did my best to just like take a deep breath, because I was thinking the whole time the worst situation for us, for the Islanders, and the best case scenario for the Rangers is he goes on waivers and they do the same thing that they did with Gaudreau, which is hey, the Blue Jackets want to trade for you, they're on your list, oh, he's blocking it, we're going to waive you, and then they're going to pick you up, and we get out of your cap hit scot-free. And I'm thinking, oh man, that's the worst case scenario. I need to make sure that this guy doesn't go on waivers, because it's clear that he's not going to be on the Rangers anymore. So hopefully they have to at least retain salary or they have to give up a first round pick for someone to take on an $8 million cap hit for this and next year, because no one in their right mind would do that. And it goes down. He's not on waivers. I'm in a good mood. I'm like, okay, so it's going to be Trouba to either the Blue Jackets, the Ducks, or like the Sabres. The Rangers can give up a first round pick to get him off the books. That's fine.
Like if 30 or whatever other teams in the league do this, that's the price of admission, right? And it's not even like an Islanders thing. Like if the Predators had to do this, they would have to give up a first round pick. The Leafs had to give up a first round pick, had to the Hurricanes to get rid of Patrick Marleau. Remember when that whole thing happened? They had to give him a first round pick. So like this,
Josh Bailey.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up Bailey again in a second too, because I think it's, as much as we're talking about the Rangers here, I do have an Islander point to tie it all together. But so yeah, like you said, logic would dictate Rangers are going to have to pay the Ducks or whoever to take Trouba, and I'm feeling a little bit better, because waivers would have been the worst case scenario. But leave it to the Rangers to not to find a scenario better than the best case scenario. The only one team in sports can do that, and that's the New York Rangers. They get a huge break. Not only are the Ducks going to give up a player to the Rangers, but they're also going to give up a draft pick to take on this contract.
Unbelievable.
And of course, the Ranger fans don't like look at this as like this is a win for Drury. It's shrewd negotiating. Like, no, you're the friggin' Rangers, man. And then also while this is all going on, we should mention Larry Brooks put out an article where the Rangers, their primary trade target is Brady Tkachuk.
Right.
I like out of nowhere, and the Senators get steaming mad, and I'm
Mm.
sitting here thinking, okay, so the Rangers are going to get out of this contract, get paid to get out of the contract, and they're going to get Brady Tkachuk all in one day. Like as I said before, like this is it for me. This is like blackness, total darkness, rock bottom of the season. Maybe in a couple years as a fan, I see no way out. I see Ranger fans celebrating. I see Brady Tkachuk coming to the Rangers. It's just a terrible day. And then the Senators, of course, like completely refute it. Ian Mendez, who was the Senators' PR person when he worked at the Athletic, and now is just officially their PR person, came out and said, like he made fun of the Brooks thing, and it was clear. I mean, I don't know how, in the weeds with sports media, a lot of people are, but I'm very in the weeds, way too in the weeds with it. So I know exactly what happened there. That was Chris Drury telling his chief Rangers writer at the Post, "Hey, put out that we're into Brady Tkachuk just to, all those waters that Steve Stais has been trying to calm. Let's get those things a bit choppy here by saying that, get it in his head, just get the thought out there, because once that happens, like those rumors are going to go wild. People, because." Right. And you wonder why Ranger fans think like, oh, well, we'll just go get that player because he's really good and he's not a Ranger yet, so let's just make him a Ranger. And it's because they're the biggest writer in their market just said, hey, the Rangers are going to go get Brady Tkachuk, and everyone's like, seriously. That's not true. But when your main beat reporter's writing it, it's going to give credibility to the report to fans. So, that's not going to go away. But anyway, so they get out of it. The Trouba thing, the Tkachuk waters are choppy now in Ottawa. It's a terrible time to be an Islander fan and a Ranger hater because of all of this. And I will say, like, the only thing that made me feel okay and better, and this is more of like I don't know, maybe it's arrogant or whatever, but like I felt like the moral high ground of when the Islanders got rid of Josh Bailey, and they gave up a second-round pick to the Blackhawks for the Blackhawks to buy him out. There've always been Bailey haters who were like celebrating it and whatever, right. But Islander fans still love Josh Bailey. Like we love him. Like he played terrible that season. The Islanders had to get rid of that contract. They did it. There wasn't anyone being like, "Fuck that." I hate him now. Like I can't believe he did us dirty by making us give up an asset. Like all these Ranger fans, they despise Jacob Trouba now.
It's crazy.
Like Islander. This is the difference between the two fan bases. Is like once you're an Islander, no matter who you are, outside of a very few exceptions, them being Kirk Muller, the guy we drafted before Victor Hedman, Brian Ralston, right. And like maybe like 2 or 3 other guys. When you're an Islander, you are an Islander. Like you're one of us, and we appreciate that you were an Islander, that you had the audacity to come here to this place and play hockey. You had the balls to play for the Islanders, and we'll always appreciate that. It's so different with the Rangers. Yeah. It's like, no, we're done with, once we're done with you, we're out. And within 2 minutes of the trade being official, the Rangers put out a Twitter tribute video to Trouba or whatever, and like the copy for the tweet was, he embodied everything it meant to be a Ranger. And I thought to myself, yeah, he did, which was, once we're done with you, we're going to run you and your wife out of town. Like, that's what it means to be a Ranger.
Well, they're going to sign him. They're going to sign him from a small market team for a huge contract, bring him over here. He's going to skirt the rules and do whatever the hell he wants on the ice. Then we're going to be done with you because you're making too much, and we got to bring in some new guys, and we're going to hate you and your wife and run you both out of town. that's. So he did in a sense embody the Rangers. We do have to give Jacob Trouba a little bit of credit here on his way out the door. Obviously, this did not sit well with him, although he had no trade protection, and he eventually, he and his wife did choose to go to Anaheim over some other places, I guess. And I guess she's staying in New York to keep working, but Southern California has hospitals too, and I guess at some point she'll probably move out there. Dr. Trouba will, but he did have a great line on his way out. He said, "I wasn't really thrilled with how it went down. In my opinion, things could have been handled better. It's unfortunate how it all happened, but it's a rite of passage to get fired from MSG," which is actually a pretty funny line. He obviously, it's not just get fired from MSG, but get banned from MSG if you're Charles Oakley, of course. So that's a great line that somehow didn't find its way into Molly Walker's story at the New York Post or in the Rangers story at their own website. The Rangers one I could kind of understand, but Molly Walker, come on, man. That's the money line right there. You gotta lead with that. That's great stuff. Anyway, Via con Dios, Jacob Trouba, we will not miss your elbows and your like flying Roman Reigns style spears into people's guts and everything else. And for the Western Conference, good luck with it facing a team. The Ducks are not good, but they're about to have a defensive pair, or at least, two defensive pairs, one with Jacob Trouba and one with Captain Radko Gudas. So
and Ross Johnston is there.
What's that?
And we got Ross the Boss there too.
Oh, that's right. Ross the Boss is there too. That's right. I forgot about him. But
Ross has more points than Casey Cizikas and Matt Martin combined. On the season.
and Ross, but it's like Ross isn't dirty. Like he's a big tough guy, but he's clean as hell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Ross, but it's just great.
Those other two guys are dirty as shit.
I know.
Anyway,
it's
that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Vios, I'm happy that the saga's over.
Yeah.
I'm happy that they lost the game tonight because had they, if I had to start seeing tweets like, "Oh, the Rangers are 4-0 since the trade." Oh, and I can't not mention the fact that the maybe the most infuriating part of this entire thing was after the Trouba thing happened. There were a lot of hockey Twitter people and writers who were like, "Well, the good thing here, if you're a Rangers hater, is that nobody's going to want to sign there anymore." And you're sitting there thinking, you just don't know how this works, man. They still play at Madison Square Garden. They're still in Manhattan. Right. Of course, players are going to want to play there. Oh, and by the way, Igor Shesterkin just extended for 8 years. Nobody's going to want to play here. Okay. I think that's just not how it works with this team. They can spit in the face of the hockey gods as much as they want, and they will get bailed out all over and over and over again. And they did, but they are struggling right now. So hopefully, long may it continue. I was joking around with someone who played in the NHL. I was asking about Emmy Lou, and I said that I'm pretty happy that the only world she knows right now is one where the Rangers are really struggling. So hopefully that continues and they that world doesn't change maybe. Because they think they've won one game since she was born, so maybe she's turned the tides.
Well, they went right back to their losing, like you said, on Sunday, big time to the Kraken. But this whole trade went down in a sense, to clean up the issues with Trouba and get his his salary cap off the books. But the main reason for that was because they wanted to sign Igor Shesterkin to an extension. And they did that. 8 years, $92 million, 11.5 million per season, most by an NHL goaltender ever. It's pretty crazy, but Igor's been obviously very, very good. And if you're Igor Shesterkin, you better start only having a 7-year lease because at that point, they're definitely going to want to get rid of you. But it is here that we have, and I don't like doing these things on back-to-back weeks, but obviously the Rangers forced our hand. They've been doing that a lot lately with people. And so we have to do, once again, a brand new Ranger Piece Theater. This one, not so much about Jacob Trouba, but about Igor Shesterkin and his contract. And who else but, of course, our beautiful boy, Larry Brooks, once again, bringing the heat with a great article here called Rangers Sign Igor Shesterkin to Record-Breaking $92 million Contract. Now, that's a very normal title for what is kind of an off-the-wall and insane piece of writing. And I'm going to read 2 sections here. This is great. But, I mean, before I get into that, so we talked a lot about Trouba. Obviously, this isn't a shock at all for them to have signed Shesterkin. Did the speed at which they traded Trouba and signed Shesterkin, he didn't actually sign until the weekend, but like they agreed to terms or whatever in the same day. Did the speed of that whole sort of one transaction and the other transaction, did that shock you at all? or were you just like, yeah, this is just par for the course for these guys?
Yeah, it is both.
Yeah.
It was it was just a nightmare day because
Right.
it was there was all this talk that Shesterkin was going to want like
Right.
13 million, 14 million.
He left money on the table.
He's leaving money on the table because he wanted to stay and they wanted him to stay. It was
Right.
And it was a grind. Oh, but also they don't want to negotiate during the season.
Right.
As soon as someone says on a on 32 Thoughts or whatever that the agent has said that they're not going to negotiate during the season, they just want to focus on hockey, you can pencil that person to be re-signed by Christmas. And that's what he got here. But yeah, I mean it was par for the course, and but it was still a twist of the knife because of how the past 24 hours had gone. And I do think there are a lot of people like, that is actually a bad contract. Like, that's way too much term and money for.
I mean, we've
the
seen
Rangers.
this a million times before.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm like, for any other team, maybe it's a bad contract. For any other team. But for them, it'll be a bad contract. And for the Minnesota Wild, when they ship Igor Shesterkin to the Minnesota Wild for somehow getting a first round pick out of it and a Foley out off the book. So I wouldn't be too worried about it from that regard, but tough.
Yeah, definitely tough. But again, not surprising at all. I guess what this really means is that the next time Igor goes out with Ilya Sorokin for dinner, the dinner's on Igor, basically. But this, I knew I didn't want to, but I knew I was going to have to go back and read Brooks and what he wrote about it. And I'm glad I did, because this thing really made me laugh quite a bit over the course of the weekend. I'm not happy that Igor is here, although, hopefully he continues to struggle. And again, signing goalies to big contracts is usually pretty risky. We celebrated the Islanders doing that to Ilya Sorokin because they're the Islanders, and guys always leave. So having these guys, on board for a long time is, on one hand, very good, but on the other hand, we've seen how things can go incredibly wrong firsthand and before anybody else. And so the fact that people keep doing these contracts is a little bit surprising. But in any event, Brooks is the opening to this Shesterkin story really cracks me up. And this is the perfect sort of Brooksian opening to a story. So he writes this. Again, this is: Rangers signed Igor Shesterkin to record-breaking $92 million contract by Larry Brooks in the New York Post. After all the noise, after all the disruption centering around Jacob Trouba, the week will end with an affirmative exclamation point. The Rangers have made a commitment to the future. The Rangers have made a commitment to the present. The Rangers have made a commitment to Igor Shesterkin, and Shesterkin has made a commitment to the Rangers. This is where I point out that none of these sentences have exclamation points in them. It's just so this was an affirmative exclamation point, but none of these sentences have or need exclamation points. This is like a campaign slogan. Like this, I could see this on like a poster somewhere.
I'm happy you said it. I was like, this reads like 1960s. John F. Kennedy is in Indianapolis or something,
right?
Trying to get union workers on his side. Oh my god,
this is too funny. Yeah, I just love this. This is, and sports writers and one sentence paragraphs. Name a better, more in love duo. I defy you, because this is what these guys do all the time. I guess at some point you're writing about so many players in so many games that it just gets to be an incredible grind. And so it's like, yeah, one sentence, that's enough. So the opening is great, but then there's another part here that cracks me up too. And this is basically what I was just talking about. This is a couple of paragraphs later. And Brooks writes this. Again, this is the highest contract ever signed by a goalie in NHL history, obviously. And so Brooks he has to reckon with that. And so he writes this. The signing represents the most positive news in a season in which the team has been buffeted by outside noise while enmeshed in internal turmoil, having lost 6 of 7 before Friday night's victory at the Garden. This is a statement that Drury and the hierarchy are not turning their backs on this season or the near future, and indeed believe in this team. One issue down. Montreal's Carey Price had been the highest paid goaltender in NHL history under an 8-year, $84 million deal with an average annual salary of $10.5 million that commenced in 2018. Price has been on long-term injured reserve because of his knees since the end of the 21-22 season. So Yeah, signing Igor is great. Igor is good, right? Let's give him the highest contract for a goalie in NHL history. Oh, yeah, by the way, the last guy with the highest contract for a goaltender in NHL history, yeah, he hasn't played in 2 years because his knees are Play-Doh now. And
his contract was last seen on the books of the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, exactly. And if they aren't now, they will be soon, right? So,
right, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought this was funny. Again, we don't root for injuries here, Frege, but you got to think about this when you sign a guy to an 8-year contract. And so, we were all really worried last year when Sorokin's contract didn't seem to get off to a great start. He's been fine now. His back surgery, seems to have been okay, and he's been great this season. But these are the kinds of things you have to worry about. But this is the Rangers' problem now, and we will see if Igor Shesterkin's contract goes the way of Carey Price's contract, and that'll be weird. But yeah, I just thought this was very funny.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Brooksian, it is Brooksian.
Yeah.
Like all is well and good. Oh, but just one little footnote, fine print here at the end. The last guy who did set the market for the goalies, it didn't go that well, but that's not the story here. The story here is it definitely won't happen to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an annoying couple days to be on our side, but you just got to hope that at some point they don't get every bounce, and that's what matters here. And maybe like Shesterkin doesn't play well coming out of the next few games or something, and the people who are already like, I don't think this is a good deal, start to get louder, and whatever. It's all we can hope for. They're struggling for the first time in like 3 seasons, like having like an actual funk. So I'm just trying to enjoy it as best I can. It's I mean, look, they're, as you said, like they do have 3 games in hand, but it's got to be uncomfortable to be in their situation and see that the Islanders, the team with the historically bad penalty kill, who've blown 9 third period leads or whatever it's been, are tied with them on points. Like that's got to be uncomfortable for them too. So let's catch them.
That's probably true too. But yeah, I would, if I was them, I would think that as well. But like you said, I mean, they are a charmed franchise, and their fans will never understand that. They'll never understand what it's like to not have other teams bend over backwards to help you out of a jam, because this just happened to the Rangers. The Scott Gomez deal, Trouba now. Marty St. Louis just wants to play for the Rangers. All right, let's just bend over backwards to get. Oh, Rick Nash only wants to play for the Rangers. Sure, we got to go get him. So it's
Marian Gaborik.
Yeah, exactly. Then they want to get rid of Gaborik because they need to get some. Oh, well, we'll just send him to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Rick Nash. So yeah,
it's just like you said, it's a charmed existence and they've only won 1 Stanley Cup since 1940. But don't let that get in the way of what they'll try to tell you. Which as we joke about, it's like they've won like 6 out of 8 or something, the way they talk. But it's I am looking forward to a little bit of a break from the hopefully the waters do get a little calm there for a little bit. Because I'm kind of sick of hearing about them too, with the way they're talked about. It's like,
for sure.
No, does anybody want to mention that this is a saga of their own doing? Like their GM invented this whole entire thing by treating his players like this. Ruthless.
Right. Yeah. That internal turmoil is definitely is completely a creation of their own general manager. So
the Rangers, all this stuff got out about them, so they're just trying to settle the dust. They're waiting for the dust to settle. They want to give the guys in the room a chance to take a deep breath because of how crazy it's been. It's been crazy because of their general manager and their crazy owner. It's not. There's no. So we're all trying to find the guy who did this here, and so it's almost like can we have some sympathy for the guys playing for the Rangers right now? It must be so hard to be Chris Kreider and Vince Trocheck and Mika Zibanejad right now to be going through something so tough like this, where their friend got traded, like somebody leaked something, and now this their whole locker room has been upended. Like,
it's
their fault.
Yeah. So hopefully they continue to struggle. When it's going to get bad again is during the trade deadline, because right now the Rangers are sitting with about $6 or $7 million in cap space because they lost that in Trouba, and obviously Shesterkin's contract doesn't kick in until next season. So they're definitely going to bring in some big fish at the deadline. Not that they wouldn't have been anyway, but now they've got a ton of cap space to do that with. So that's my next worry. So we'll see what happens.
And it should also be noted that the Hurricanes signed Dustin Tokarski to AHL deal at some point in the past couple weeks, so you could definitely pencil him in for
100%.
at least games 5, 6, and 7 of the Hurricanes' second round series lost to the Rangers, in which like half the I heard Greg Picker mention it on the radio that the Hurricanes had I think 17 of their 18 skaters had played all 27 games for the Hurricanes on the season, some crazy stat like that, and only thing I could think of was, oh yeah, like they'll be incredibly healthy until round 2 when they play the Rangers, and all of a sudden, 6 or 7 of them get abducted by aliens or something.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it'll definitely be something, and we'll just have to keep an eye open for it. But yeah, we'll see. So thank you, Larry Brooks, for providing us with 2 weeks worth of Ranger Peace Theaters that we will not forget anytime soon. Okay, we can wrap it up here. Again, thank you very much for listening. We have a couple of things coming up this week, including a brand new Weird Islanders later on in the week about a very, very memorable game against the Rangers. It's a great episode. Take a look for it. It coming out later this week with one of our favorite guests. And so I can't wait. This one has been in the can for a while, and I've been waiting for it to come out in December because this was when that game. We talk about a player but who had one extremely memorable game, and it happened in December. And so I'm kind of waiting this whole time to let that go. So I can't wait for people to hear it, and I think you're really going to like it. Also, another edition of my 10-game thoughts is going to come out later on this week as well, I think after the first Blackhawks game, or maybe the day of the first Blackhawks game. I'm not sure. Become a member at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. You can find us, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music on Spotify and check out their new record, God Looks Out for Fools. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try Wines from the Pinot Project. Both of them are perfect for the holidays. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. You can follow me on Blue Sky if you want a culture of losing. Any final thoughts on the week that was, the week that is? I feel like we've exhausted our thoughts on the Rangers here, but it was a split weekend, or a split week, I should say. And there's been some good. We don't want to rain on everybody's parade too much, but I guess what we're saying is just don't forget about the real problems that are kind of lurking under the surface.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good warning to heed. I think it was last weekend. I was like, I'm gonna go full blown optimist into this week. It turns out that was the wrong attitude to take because the Islanders took us on to very familiar exits off the Islander Highway this week once again, from feel bad wins to overtime losses, boo birds at the old barn, and then of course the classic win where you're like, where the hell has this team been? Every for at least most of the nights. So I'm not going to go as far and be as bold as that, but I'm holding out hope that this team can just continue to give us some more every week. Just keep giving us meaningful games. I don't want to see more people pulling the plug on the season, and that is a high bar to ask of a team. Hey, make it hard for fans to pull the plug on a season before Christmas. That would be nice. So hopefully they surprise us this week, but I'm not going to hold my breath, but
yeah. Speaking of surprises, congratulations, Mets fans. Juan Soto. It actually happened. How about that? Breaking news. Well, I'm not breaking it. These baseball insiders are breaking it, but there you go. Congratulations. Enjoy. And we will talk to you again next week after the Blackhawks game. We'll get on and talk about how those 2 games went, and we'll see where they're at then. All right. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.